Hello and welcome to AAU Talks on AAU TV. We are coming to you live from the Association of African University Studios, and you can follow us on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Sedi Quashigah, and I have here with me today some members of the higher education fraternity to join me in a discussion as we take a look at the higher education space in Malawi. We will take a quick break, and when we return, I'll introduce our guests and we will move on with the conversation. Stay tuned.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet. With our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming machines, and others, you are sure to get the best of production. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU studio via the following addresses: info@aau.org, AAU TV @aau.org, ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on 0244 185 998 or 0244 693 342.
Welcome back. As I mentioned earlier, we are taking a look at the higher education space in Malawi, and we have some guests here to help me discuss the topic. First of all, we have Professor Dixie Maluwa Banda, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Council for Higher Education in Malawi. Prof.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much.
Secondly, we have Mr. Elias Fredrick Selengo, Quality Assurance Specialist Academic, also from the National Council of Higher Education in Malawi. Mr. Elias, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
We also have with us Dr. Adamson Thengolose. He is the Quality Assurance Manager, also from the National Council for Higher Education in Malawi. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And finally, we have Mrs. Susan Manyetera. She's also a Quality Assurance Specialist of Operations, also from the National Council of Higher Education in Malawi. Madam, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Before we go, I would just like to ask, is this your first time in Ghana, in your view?
For me, this is my second time. It was the first time when I came to Ghana, we were handling the validation of Pan-African qualifications framework. Okay. That was my first time.
Okay. Yeah. And, this being your second time, how's
your experience? This is my second time.
How's your experience been so far?
It has been a good experience. It's like coming home, basically. Yeah. Good experience, yeah.
We're happy to hear that. So before we move on with the discussion, just like to get some brief information about you. So, Prof, if you don't mind going first for us.
All right, okay, thank you very much. As you said at the very beginning, I am the director, I mentioned this, the Deputy CEO of the National Council of Malawi. But before joining the council, I was with the University of Malawi, where I had the opportunity to serve in various positions. I once was the head of department in the University of Malawi, and then I became the Dean of Education. And I was seconded to the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology in 2011 to 2013 as Director of Higher Education. And then I went back to the university. And here I am.
Thank you. You're welcome once again. Mr. Selengo, how about you? Can we have some information about you?
Thank you so much. As for me, this is my first time to be in Ghana, and I've enjoyed my coming to Ghana. Ghana is a very good country with historical backgrounds worth mentioning. As my background with National Council for Education, I work as Quality Assurance Specialist Academic. I joined the council in 2017. Before I was working as a lecturer at Domas College of Education, where I served as head of department and dean of students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome to Ghana. Dr. Thengolose. Sorry.
For me, this is my first time being to Ghana. Okay. Though I have a lot of friends here whom I met during my studies. I've enjoyed, especially the food. But where I went at first in Tamale was a bit hot. Okay. And that gave me a temperature shock. But anyway, all in all, I've enjoyed the stay in Ghana. It has been a nice experience. I worked with the National Council for Education as the Quality Assurance Manager, academic. Before joining, I was with the University of Malawi, the Polytechnic, as the Quality Assurance Director. Ghana has given me another experience in quality assurance in higher education. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Manyetera, can we have some information about you before we move on?
Thank you very much. This is my first time also in Ghana, and I've enjoyed the stay, meeting the people who are friendly and warm all throughout, so I am happy to be here. I joined National Council for Higher Education in 2016 as a quality assurance specialist for operations. I've worked in the education sector all my life. I've taught at different levels from primary school to secondary school, and I taught at tertiary education as a teacher trainer, and before I joined National Council for Higher Education as a quality assurance specialist. So I've been in education all through, and I enjoy the job. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and welcome to you all once again.
Thank you.
Let's dive right in. So, first question, what is the population of Malawi, and what percentage of the population has attained the higher education level? Prof,
yeah, thank you very much indeed for that question. Malawi's population is estimated to be at 17 million as we stand, and 52% are female and 48 males. Now, when we talk about our enrollments in higher education are on the lower side. We are at 0.4%. Because for a long time, Malawi have had only one university, University of Malawi, which was established in 1964, and there was no any other institution. Other institutions came on board after 1994, when Malawi decided to open up, and then it established other public universities. We now have 4 public universities, and then the private sector joined on board to begin to offer higher education. So in terms of our enrollments are still lagging behind. Thank you.
Okay. And Africa has seen a rise in private provision of higher education. So we'd just like to know what the situation is in Malawi, and then the proportion of students that are enrolled in these private institutions. So Dr. Thengolose, if you can.
Thank you very much. As the Prof has indicated, up until 1997, we had one university whose enrollment was less than 1,000 in a year. And then by 2013, we had 4 public universities. But before 2013, around 2010, a lot of private investors were established. This gave rise to increase in access to higher education, but there was an issue of quality of education that was being offered at that time, and that was the reason that the Council for Education was established. Yeah.
So talking about the private provision of education, it always brings to mind the issues of quality. So what does quality education in Malawi entail? If Ms. Manyetera, can you just give us an idea of what quality education in Malawi means?
Quality education in Malawi means that the kind of education that is being provided is relevant. And by relevance, I'm talking about education that is able to address to the socio-economic challenges that we are facing. So National Council for Higher Education is there to ensure that provision of higher education is responsive to the gaps that we have. And that's why we have got the academic department, which looks into the kind of curriculum that we have, whether it is addressing to the specific needs that Malawi nation has. So that's one aspect of quality as we talk about in Malawi.
Okay, Mr. Selengo, could you tell us how the National Council for Higher Education ensures the quality of teaching and learning in Malawi by these private institutions?
Thank you so much. The National Council for Higher Education in Malawi was established to regulate and promote higher education in Malawi. In order to meet its mandate, there are a number of activities that National Council for Higher Education does. One of the things that National Council for Higher Education does is conducting assessment for registration and accreditation of higher education institutions. Again, National Council also promote quality assurance in higher education institutions by making sure that all the processes and policies are being implemented in higher education institutions. But again, National Council for Higher Education also provide a platform for sharing best practices in higher education institutions. Briefly, that's, I can say so, that's the role of National Council for Higher Education.
Okay, Dr. Thengolose, could you let us know whether higher enrollment means the quality of human resources is improved?
Not necessarily like that. High enrollment rates might imply at times a drop in the quality due to number of personnel that are available to support the delivery of the higher education. There are several factors that might contribute to the drop of quality, in addition to the availability of staff supporting the delivery of the higher education. Some of which might be inadequate space, inadequate teaching materials and equipment, and also inadequate laboratory facilities when it comes to science-related subjects.
Okay. Could you say that contributes to why most graduates seem to find it hard to get a job after graduation? That's in the increase in their numbers bringing down slightly the quality of education that they receive. Could that be a contributing factor?
Slightly, yes. But the employment rates are also determined by the market demand. If we graduate 100 individuals today and there are 50 spaces for employment available, then we can't employ all of them. But if there are more than 200 spaces available, then the industry is going to hire all of them.
Prof, could you
Yes.
please let us talk about the rate of graduate unemployment in Malawi?
The rate at present, of course, we are on the lower side, as I said in my introduction, that we seem not to, because I think the issue of the space to accommodate. So that's why government is trying to challenge higher education to widen access, and then we're reminding a government that as we widen access, don't forget the issue of quality, because these have to go hand in hand. You can't just be widening access, but then in terms of our graduates, indeed we are producing graduates year after year, but as you said, where do they go? And I think the thinking now is we needed to think seriously about entrepreneurship route, where we should begin to inculcate the entrepreneurship aspect in the curriculum for the learners when they finish, that they can even create their own jobs and employ others, rather than maybe remaining with the formal way of recruitment.
So I'd like to ask, is education gradually shifting focus from the classroom environment?
Yeah.
And is that the ideal situation?
Because of the times that we are living, it is, we have to move with times. And what we have seen now is that apart from the classroom, all of a sudden we are beginning to have online, we are having to have open and distance learning, other forms of also which, if done properly, can increase access. But those other forms cannot be left behind, because we are in the technological era where we don't want to be left behind. So with what we have, we feel it's the right way to go.
Mrs. Manyetera, can you tell us what the likely implications of education shifting from the classroom environment may be?
Yeah, the shifting of a classroom situation kind of teaching to a distance kind of teaching would mean that the quality of education that is being offered could be a bit difficult to regulate and moderate. But also, there's a huge likelihood of people establishing institutions which are not authentic. So because of that kind of mode, people have fallen trap in enrolling into education which is not appropriate, or they have been enrolled in fake institutions and thereby being provided qualifications that are not authentic. So that's the likelihood that we have through this mode of teaching or learning. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be going for a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with the discussion. Please stay tuned.
Anyone can get an education, but not everyone gets quality education. It's never too late to acquire it. The University of Lusaka, a modern private university located off Alikinkata Road in Lusaka, Zambia, offers undergraduate, master's and PhD degree programs in the School of Business and Management, Law, Economics, Banking and Financial Services, Public Administration, Governance and International Relations, Education, Engineering and the Built Environment, and Health Sciences. Our curriculum is practical and designed to meet the changing needs of employers, business and society. Because at Unilas, we make students think outside the book. Our driving force is a passion for quality education. We build graduates fit for purpose. Enroll now for January or June intakes. For more information, log on to www.unilas.ac.zm.
Okay, so we move on to research. African scholars tend to resort to publish their findings of research in books, which end up most of the time on shelves that nobody looks at, rather than commercializing their findings. So, Doc, could you tell us why that seems to be the case, and then whether that is what is happening in Malawi?
Normally what happens is that when one has done a research and you need to share the information gathered from that research through publication. When we publish, or when scholars publish, there's a need for stakeholders to read and take the message home from the publication. So normally these publications are put into libraries. Some cases that the patronage to the libraries is minimal. Sometimes the research might be to do with the policy changes in the way we are running our governments. These have to be shared through publications. Most often, you find that those in policy making decisions are not ready to implement what has been passed on through that publication. So you find that due to lack of interest from these policymakers, you find that scholars will publish the work and then put them on the shelf because the owners of policies are not ready to implement the recommendations made from the research. So basically that might be the main reason for shelving the publications.
Okay. Is it also possible that it's because these researches are funded by donors, and so that puts a limitation on what the researcher can actually do with the research when they are done with it, because they've received money from someone to do research, and so at the end of it you have to give whatever it is back to the one who invested in it, so you don't really have much control over what to do with the research. Could that also be a factor?
Partly no, because when we have donors to fund you to do a research, they should have a reason for why they want you to do that research. So for them, the interest that there should be an outcome from that research, where they'll get an interest to know what you have found. But there should be also an interest from the other policymakers to know what you have recommended from the research, so that they will pass on the implementation strategies on the recommendations.
Okay, Prof, could you give us some measures that you think could help boost the interest of research that is done?
I think it will be very important that we make research as part of culture in our institutions. And that can only be done when we begin to introduce postgraduate programs where we would like students and staff to be engaging in research so that there is some kind of mentorship through the process. So in so doing, students are getting to have interest in research and staff are trying to promote research. So I think the working together, the partnership in research would help.
Okay. Mr. Selengo, yes. As a quality assurance specialist, what advice do you have for higher education heads in terms of increasing the number of people in higher education without compromising on the quality?
Now I can say that Africa is at crossroads. We're at crossroads in such a way that we need to widen access in higher education institutions, but also we need to maintain quality. But most of the time, widening access do compromise quality. But we can manage to have the two together, to widen access but also to maintain quality. How can we do this? In the first place, we need to have strong systems in higher education institutions. The institutions themselves should have the primary responsibility of maintaining quality assurance. Apart from that, the higher education institutions should collaborate and network with each other in quality assurance issues. They should also work hand in hand with the regulatory bodies. For example, in Malawi, we have the National Council for Higher Education. So higher education institutions in Malawi should work closely with National Council for Higher Education institutions, with National Council for Higher Education in promoting quality as well as widening access. Likewise, here in Ghana, they can also collaborate and work closely with a National Accreditation Board and National Council for Higher Education. Working in isolation cannot help to improve quality. There is need to widen access, but not at the expense of quality. Otherwise, the whole essence of increasing access will be in vain.
Mrs. Manyetera, do you have anything to add to that?
What I can add on the improvement of management and governance in higher education is that quality higher education can only be achieved if the leaders are proactive. So sometimes we find that the efforts to increase quality are fruitless because the management, the top management, are not very much involved in the quality assurance issues. So my plea is that the leadership of higher education institutions should work together and be proactive and be in the forefront of the efforts that are being put in place, other than leaving it to the middle managers. That would not work.
Okay. Dr. Thengolose, could you just give us some closing remarks on the way you see a higher education in Malawi going in the next maybe 5 years?
I think in Malawi we have got a lot of work to do. We have 4 public universities. These public universities only enroll about 5,000 students in a year out of around 17,000. Then another proportion of those remaining, around 12,000, go to the private sector or to private universities. Not all of them go to the universities because the fees in the private universities are a little bit high. Yeah. So I think government needs to put in place mechanisms of increasing access. We need to create more space by either expanding existing universities or establishing new universities, so that at least we can enroll more than half of the students that do qualify. We can also collaborate with the private institutions and come up with the mechanisms how we can enter into partnership where we can increase the enrollments of our qualified students. However, doing that, we may also need to look at how do we need to improve the quality of the hydration service that we are offering. At the moment, our council is busy with the accreditation of institutions. We are still conducting this exercise, and I hope in the next few years or so we'll have more than half of the institutions being accredited. So our aim is to have as many institutions as possible being accredited, and so that the graduates that come from these institutions are recognized when they come to look for jobs.
All right, thank you very much for your thoughts. Viewers, this has been AAU Talks. We have taken a look at the higher education space in Malawi. I would just like to say a big thank you to our guests coming all the way from Malawi. We hope that you can come again and join us sometime in the near future. Okay. My name has been Sedi Quashigah. This has been AAU Talks live from the Association of African University Studios. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.